It's the place where senior living insights and entertainment collide, like two star-crossed lovers meeting at a polka dance. This is the Bellwether Senior Living Podcast, hosted by Jeff Bell of Bell PR and Marketing. Senior living marketers, put your hands together for the host with the most. Okay, maybe not, but he tries. Jeff Bell.
Thank you, Tom, as always, for the introduction. I am back again. We've had some periods this year where we've been off for a few weeks just because of the nature of the beast and the busyness of the business, but we're glad to have another one on the podcast docket, and I'm really excited to be joined by a friend, also a client, and someone who I think is going to bring a really interesting perspective to sort of our ongoing conversation about senior living, and that is Danica Loftin. She's the marketing director at Topeka Presbyterian Manor. Presbyterian Manors of Mid-America is I guess I can say, longtime Bell client now. They've been with us for several years, and we just love the relationship we have with them. And the whole point of this conversation today is that Danica and I got to talking about collaboration and being a collaborative person, and how some elements of collaboration are so important in the senior living world in terms of bringing people together and fostering those relationships that make communities so special. And Danica's superpower is being one of those people who can bring people together. So Danica, welcome to the Bellwether Senior Living Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, being asked to do this. This is exciting.
Well, we're glad to have you on. And so all of this started because you and I were having a conversation about something that you put together there at the Manor called Coffee and Conversation, which is essentially an opportunity for residents, of course, to get together in the morning, kind of a not super structured scenario where they can have a cup of coffee, maybe some breakfast, get to know one another. But then you've kind of taken it to another level and are planning to offer this to people who maybe are interested in becoming future residents, to give them just that opportunity to get a feel for who their neighbors would be and what life at the community is like. Tell me a little bit about how that came together, and just speak to the importance of that collaborative nature of things in senior living.
Sure, I'd love to. So, our activities department is amazing, and every place has a, really focus on activities. Our activities department every Monday morning did a coffee and trivia for our independent living folks. And prior to COVID, we had a group of independent living folks who got together every morning and had coffee, talked about the ball game from the night before, talked about the news, whatever. You could hear them in our building. COVID really changed a lot, and that's never really come back full force the way it had. So activity started this Monday morning trivia. When it came to really looking at what we're needing to do to bring people into a community, what kind of factors keep them from coming, we started studying the fact that, one of the things women were really afraid of with making a change from their home to a senior living community was, is anybody going to like me? Am I going to have any friends? That's a very frightening thing, and we think about that as our kids grow up and they go off to school, that they have those fears. We forget that we may have those fears again later in life, and actually we have it several times throughout our lives. But that really struck a chord with me, and in order to also, I would say, supplement, enhance the activities section, it was determined that I would take one Monday a month, the second Monday of the month, and do a coffee conversation. I bring in special treats. Sometimes we will have a speaker. We'll have somebody who comes in and is an expert in some topic, like hospice or therapies or things like that they want to learn about. Sometimes we just get together to talk, just to talk about what ball games have been on, what the news is about, who's got a new great-grandbaby, whatever the case may be. But it's a fun time to just look forward to and get together. It became really apparent to me that I was missing an opportunity to connect potential residents with my current residents. Our residents are our biggest assets. Most of them have been here a long time. They've got great longevity. They've been through the ups and the downs, and they've seen how we have reacted to things. And that's a lot of information, valuable information that a potential prospect could really want. And it can come from me, but to come from the people who would be their peers is a whole different ballgame. And so I got really excited about that. We started with the idea of this coffee conversation, and we kind of expanded it to hooking prospects or their adult children up with lunch dates with some of our residents that might have some experiences and similar concerns for their parents or them themselves, just to let people know that it really is about community. It's not just about giving up your home. It's not just about living a maintenance-free life. It's about being in community again. And for those of our residents that are widowed or living alone, it can be very exciting and still very scary to have a community again. But overall, this, the social aspect of it is so important. And I just got really excited about it. So we started talking to our residents about it. We started asking them what they thought, and getting their input has been amazing. And it's also been something that has been a joy in my life. I get to look forward once a month to be with these people, whether it's having fun, laughing, whether it's talking about something serious, whether it's learning. It's all been really, really good. And we've kind of expanded that in a couple of other areas too.
Well, there's the old saying that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And it sounds like this is one of those opportunities in your role to really sort of thrive in that, helping to be a collaborator. Where did that sort of passion for bringing people together and creating these opportunities stem from?
That's a very good question. I come from a long line of social workers, and it's kind of always been bred into me. And it's really important because at the Manor, my title has more to do with marketing and sales. But I don't think of myself as a salesperson. I'm a connector. It's what I've done in every job I've ever had. I don't care what the title has been on my name tag. I'm a connector. It's how I work, and it's what I do, and it's what I love. And like I said, I come by it naturally. And it really excites me. It brings, the connecting a potential resident to new residents not only brings joy or maybe even some security to potential new residents, but it brings joy to the residents we already have. Yeah. They get very excited when we're going to have new prospects. They get fully invested when they've gotten the chance to meet them before they've decided to be a prospect. And they're likely to call and say, hey, come do this activity with us later. That has nothing to do with me inviting them, but with them inviting them. And it's, people don't have to come to us just because they've come. We don't expect them just to move in because they've come to an event or a coffee conversation, or because one of our residents invited them to some other activity. But it's still nice to always make new friends and have more connections. I love seeing the joy in our residents, and I love seeing the relief in the potential residents. It's really satisfying, and I just cherish it.
Well, and piggybacking on that term relief, you sort of alluded to it earlier. And those of us that work in the industry, we love it. We're passionate about it. We love seeing people say that thing that they say more than anything else, which is, I wish I'd done it sooner, once they do get settled in. But to your point, there's that period where, it's just like when we were in school, or when you start a new job, or you move to a new neighborhood, there's that trepidation about this big change that's happening. And of course, we don't get the choice when we're 6 years old and we're sent to kindergarten. Our parents sort of take care of that for us. But this is a big life decision. It's one of the biggest life decisions they will ever make. And so I would imagine you playing a role in finding unique ways to connect people, whether they ultimately end up moving in or not, has got to be really rewarding.
It is. And I just thought of something else. It's not just rewarding for the resident that's already here, the potential resident that may move in, but it's also a huge relief and benefit for the adult children who are helping their parents to either make this decision, or if they have to make the decision for them. There's always a lot of emotion about a move like this, and there can be a lot of guilt if an adult child thinks that their parent needs more help than they can give themselves. And so, to me, this is not just a one person or a couple's journey. It's the family journey. It's that goes along with it. So I think it's important to help support all of those people as best as I can, and that has been the biggest blessing in my life, really, especially in my work capacity. Sure.
And of course, at any community, whether you're talking about a neighborhood where you work, whatever, there are extroverts, there are introverts, there are those who are sort of in between. I would imagine that this is really beneficial for people who maybe are a little bit shy to begin with, to have that opportunity to kind of observe on their own terms. You know, if it's a big group of people having conversation, they don't have to jump right in, but they can kind of get a feel for things. Talk through that. Person who is they know they need that community, they know it's important, but they're very selective about the type of community that they're ultimately going to pick.
Oh, I love this question. Because I have a strong belief that in any market, you know, we have what they call competitors out there. I, of course, because I don't think of myself as sales, I think of myself as a connector. I also don't think of competitors as competitors. I think of them in a different light as well. I truly believe there's enough business out there for all of us. And I truly also believe that people belong in certain settings, that we all offer something a little different as far as what the setting is and the comfort level and those kinds of things. So therefore, my biggest goal always is to help people find what is right for them. And if it's us, that we are able to take care of them well and keep them safe. So those are my biggest motivators there. But the ability for someone to have a chance just to observe, to make a decision, whether they're a person who would rather have had a more private lunch with just a couple of residents or a big conversation. There's so many ways to fit that to that person's need. And that's all about listening, in my opinion. That's about really finding out what that person's needs are, what their fears are. Is it something we can overcome? Is it something that we can't overcome? If it's something we can't overcome, we still talk about them. We need to talk about what those are. And so I think I've been extremely excited about this potential. Like I said, we are expanding this, and not just in coffee and conversation. We also have a wine and teas we do as a regular activity. Sometimes people are, you know, really interested to know that, hey, I can still have a social life. I can still make choices about what I want to do, have, or say. Sometimes people think wine and alcohol may be taboo in certain areas, but it's just part of what their everyday life may have been prior to living in senior community. We want people to know that they still live their own lives here. They still make choices, and it's not about giving things up like that in general. I had one lady who told me, don't you ever invite me to bingo. I hate bingo. Don't you ever invite, okay, I will never invite you to bingo. But wine and cheese she wanted to come to. Yeah. Or a lunch with a very targeted group of people. I have noticed that the men, especially single men that might be thinking about it, they love to have lunch with a group of men. And like our chaplain, that has been a very big thing too. So it's just about learning and trying to figure out how I can know my current residents enough to know how they may fit with the potential ones coming in, and how that may be can connect together for all kinds of purposes. I just think that the ability to listen to all parties and try to figure out that path is really important.
And speak a little bit, if you will, because as you know, as marketers, we can do so much. As salespeople, connectors, collaborators, whatever you want to call it, we can do, you know, everything we can. But those resident ambassadors, those people who are their peers, are so important at the community level. What would you say to someone who's in your role at a community, maybe just getting started, about the importance of finding those residents who are willing to sort of step up, be those ambassadors for the community, be welcoming to new residents, but also take part in things like coffee and conversation to meet people kind of where they are? Yeah,
I would say a couple of things. One, as I started talking about this a lot, not from our system, but from other networking in our community, people had said things to me like, well, you're hooking them up with your residents and letting them have lunch by themselves. Aren't you concerned they may say something that you don't want them to say? And I find that very interesting, because my approach to that is, I want our residents to tell them everything that they think and feel about here, because our residents are still here and they're still happy. We will never be 100% perfect all of the time and everyone's happy all the time. I think the more power in that, the powerful part of that, is that, what did you do about those things? How did you address them? How did you go forward? And so I think that don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. My advice is, don't be afraid to connect those people. Don't be afraid to let your potential residents know who your current residents are, especially if you can see that they are the kind of people that would fit together well. I'm not saying you have to have all residents of all the same socioeconomic background, color, rate, whatever. I'm just saying, look for how they may fit within your community so that you can help them know they will. Or if you don't know that they will, think about how you can connect with people and see how that's going to go. Anything to help make that, but don't be afraid of it. And if a prospect or a prospect's adult child, here's something that they want, encourage them to say anything they want to say to these prospects, and encourage the prospects to come back to you and talk about it. I think that's even more powerful, to be able to say, oh, yes, I do remember that situation, and this is what we did and how we handled it, and this is what kind of the outcome was. Or, wow, I didn't even know they were upset about that. Let's talk about what the next steps are. Use it as an opportunity to showcase who you are as an administration, as a community, and as caregivers to these residents, whether it's actual medical caregiving or just emotional caregiving. I think it's all important. It's a whole package, and yeah, don't be afraid. Bring it in.
Well, we are really grateful that you brought it into this podcast and shared some of this information. Whether you're listening on your way to work or whether you've caught half of it on the way to work and half of it at home, we're glad you tuned in. And if you work in senior living and you need some advice or direction on some of these things, feel free to check out our full slate of podcasts. Or check us out on the web, www.bellpr.org. Danica Loftin, Marketing Director at Topeka Presbyterian Manor in Topeka, Kansas. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And I think it's some really, really valuable stuff that we discussed.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You guys have a good day. For
producer engineer Julie Montoya Houston, Tom Watts, I'm Jeff Bell saying never follow, be a bellwether.